Okay, it is time to move on to a different area of the scene and select this pavement or little pathway to the house and perspective and zooming in and add a texture to this one. Now I have a prepared set of texture to demonstrate the different maps for different purpose. So I will select a new material and switch to drag drop and rename it to concrete. And in the diffuse channel, I'll load the diffuse map. There's a concrete diffuse, opening it up and make it visible. So I will add it and make it shown. Now here comes an issue. We have some kind of a problem, and that problem comes from the creation. So Alt Q to isolate perspective. And as you see, we have the beginning area, and the beginning area is quite nice. Then it becomes a mass, and it actually disappears. Now, this is a trace of the modeling method. So when it was created, it actually started from a single plane with two segments, and then it was extended to cover the grass. So we have to create the UVs. Now we don't want to use UV editors for this. It is much easier if you are just simply opening up UV map, but it's not a planar map. The reason is quite simple. As you see, if you are just using a planar map, the sides are just washed out, so it's like motion blur, because the texture is coming only from one direction, only from one projection angle. Now we'll switch to box method, and box method is pretty promising. So we have a couple textures just here and there. The problem is the huge stretch, or the amount, the mixture is not really matching. Now what to do? If you want to make it the easiest way, is usually the best if you have a square map. For example, this is a square map, so we are using a square. Then if you have a box or a plane, if you adjust the sizes, everything to the same, for example in real life size, this concrete patch might be about 100 centimeters, so 1 meter square meter. So I will set it to, oh, we are working in meters, so 1 meter, 1 meter, and 1 meter. Just let me check. It's too dense, but as you see, the side is already good. Okay, so I will use 5 instead of this. And now this is quite promising. Okay, this is not the nicest texture of the world, but here we go. This is actually working for the regarding to the resolution. If you want to change it a little bit easier and you don't want to adjust with the values, then you leave it as it is, one by one by one, and going into the UV maps, and you can set the gizmo and switch to scale mode, and you can scale it up and down. Okay, that's one easy way. For example, you can go to the camera view and create a render, test it out. If the density is not fine, you can scale it up, press and then render again, F9. Okay, I'm pretty much satisfied with this resolution. So this is one of the reasons why we have a camera. I'm in isolation mode, so just as with the two. Now if I compare the density of the grass and the density of the concrete, it looks pretty good. So I think we have a match. Alright, this is one of the benefits to have a camera early on. Okay, now to move on, I will go back to perspective view. No, not here. Perspective. And zooming in, because there's a couple maps I want to use. Now what kind of maps? First of all, we need a bump map. That bump map is actually creating an emboss like effect. Shift Q will do the job here. Now this surface is really flat, so I want to add some effect of a surface bump by using the bump channel. And we have a list of channels named as maps. So instead of using diffuse color, this channel color, you can actually use the diffuse color channel here and use, here's the texture. So actually this one is the same that you see here at the top. Now walk down and look for the bump map. I'll time to enable that. Instead of no map, we will use a bitmap, and it's just there's a concrete bump material, and I will make it visible. It is matching with the concrete diffuse texture, so there's no surprise. There's a match, and just let me open up the previous render. So render frame window. This one's the previous. I will make a clone of it. We'll keep it open and hit on render and see the difference. Okay, now we have a bump effect. For example, around here, it's much more visible. But let me increase the value of the bump. That's to 100, and render it again. And now this one is significant. Okay, so this is the flat version. This one is the bumped version. I don't know if it's good or not for the end with the lights and everything, but for now it is there, and it shows up the quality that I wanted to change. Now this is the purpose of a bump map. This bump map is actually looking like the following. So I'm opening up by pressing on view image. So where you have these white areas that actually extrudes from the surface, and this one, the black areas are going inward. If you're not satisfied, I'm not sure if it's the best. If just let me quickly render it out. What if we are inverting it? Why not? So we can revert it by -100. That actually flips the direction. Just let me quickly make another variation. Oh yeah, I like this one better. So this one looks a little bit more realistic to me compared to this one, especially if I do a match with the grass. Okay, so that's the purpose of the bump map. Bump map adds surface details. And we have another map for this, and that is actually Specular Level. Okay, so Specular Level and Specular Color are two teammates but different maps. So Specular Color is what kind of specularity, I mean highlight color you have. So if you are creating a gold material, your highlight should be about something like a yellowish or copper, or that could be a red one, or for dark black hair that might be a little bit bluish. So in this case, we don't want to edit the specular color. We want to edit specular level. Specular level tells the software where your specular color appears. So specular level is now turned on. I have a bitmap, and that's concrete specular, and that's a level color, level map. And the difference is the following. So as you see, now we have some kind of a highlight. So imagine that this concrete surface is slightly glossy because of, rain or anything like that. So, and this glossiness comes from the specular level. So if I turn this off, now we lost that. If I'm turning it back on, now we have it. So if and on top of it, you can adjust the color of this. So imagine if the sky you have is bluish because it's a little bit cast, and couple clouds are on top. I'm sure that you don't have this kind of a bright specular color. So that might be a little bit foggy bluish one. A little bit more color, put on more color, and that's instantly visible here. So now we have it's much more visible in the shadow area. Now we have this pretty bluish tone. Okay, I will keep it as is. So the bluish tone is there. Remember that there's a two-way adjustment. So you have a level. Level tells where color appears. So these are working hand in hand. Uh, and we have a kind of interesting material with a diffuse color and overall color information with a specularity with some kind of a highlight and a surface effect, a surface uh, roughness effect. And if I'm zooming out and rendering it from this distance, now we have these highlights. We have the we have the bump map and everything like that. So it's quite fun to use. Okay, now moving forward, there's another interesting map that's really fun to use. It is called Opacity Map. Now, opacity maps are coming with some of the built-in content of 3dsmax. This one is actually a tree, and this tree was converted into an editable poly, but this tree has some maps on it. Now, just let me quickly just turn it off and create a quick render, and you will instantly recognize that, okay, there's something different here. In the viewport, we see simple polygons, but in the rendering, we see tiny leaves. And the reason for this is we have a cutout or opacity map. The two actually not the same. In some cases, you can even combine opacity and cutout maps, but for the basic materials, these are really close. So we can check it out by opening up the material editor. Now material editor. Okay, I want the material that's used on this guy to test it, to explore it. Now, when I have a blank material here, or any type actually, I can use the pick material from object and stealing it with the eyedropper. And as you see, we have something funny. Now, ID is actually the same thing as we used with the mushroom or the book or everything. It is material ID. This material is called multi-sub-object. Multi-sub-object materials are combining simple standard materials or any, it's up to choice, materials, and using them as distributed materials for different material IDs. So in this case, you don't have to always explode your model. You can keep a model as one unit, but for different elements, different areas of the model, you can identify them with material IDs and add different materials to those IDs. Now in this case, we have ID 5. ID 5 tells us, okay, leaves. So these polygons must be ID 5. Just let me quickly check that. Soft selection, yep, set ID, select ID, everything is ID 5. If I press select ID, all of the polygons will be selected because every other polygons are actually removed or deleted. So branches, tree, so this one is actually a tree canopy, but with the removed, the other content is absolutely removed. Alright, go back to the editable poly level to exit from editing, hitting on leaves. And inside leaves, we have a map at opacity. So I'm going in. I'm in the editing room. Here's the name, big leaf 3F3TGA. So, and opening up the view image, and okay, now I get it. So this is the guy that we are using on each map now, or each plane. I'll make it visible. So here we go. This is what we have. So whenever you want to create a cutout map or opacity map, the principles are the following. You can use any type of map, like a grayscale or black and white. You don't have to use always the highest resolution. The good guideline is use as small as possible, especially if you are doing and creating foliage. Foliage can eat really a lot of memory, and if you're in animation, the results sometimes are not that good. Even if you try, it takes a lot of calculation power. Um, so it's a good idea to keep them as low as optimally possible. Okay, and if you have a couple blurred lines, that's also not a big deal, because it can create nice blend effects in the viewport. All right, now I'm closing this up, and another thing to make it visible, if I'm going up right now, this turns on and off the maps. Because we are on the opacity level. But if we are leaving this editing room and we are in the highest level, or not the absolute highest, but a little bit one step higher, and I'm pressing again the show shaded material, it will show the combination of the two. So it will show the color that's come from diffuse, and it will show the opacity that's comes from the map. So this is the end result that you also see when you press and render. Now, another thing we have to talk about here, because opacity is it makes no wonders. So these polygons are still single-sided polygons. So if you take a look at the material sample here, I'll double click to make it enlarged. We have a cubic material sample. I will switch it to a sphere. Now it's fairly visible. As you see, we have one sphere, and all the leaves, all the three leaves are wrapped onto that sphere. Now we have a front side and a back side. By default, it happens if the shader basic parameters is turned to two-sided. So if I'm unticking this two-sided, the back face will disappear. Okay, because by default a polygon has only one side, and the material editor offer a setting for us. So this is an offering by the material editor that we can trick the polygons to make them two-sided. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing, that if you have an opacity map or any kind of a reflecting map, sometimes it's a good idea to turn on the background, because background can show a lot of things. And as you see, because of the low resolution of the map, we have this nice little smooth edge around. Okay, a little bit blurry edge. It's quite good for rendering masses, rendering volumes of leaves and everything like that. Okay, so that's about the uh, maps. So we have diffuse map. We checked the noise in the previous section, and the bump map, and also the specular, and what's the difference between specular color and specular level. We also just checked how to steal and pick a material from the scene by using the pick material from object, the eyedropper, and we have a couple exciting features, um, with a house in the roof. Okay, so see you next time. Goodbye.